hard. It's easy to do.
Okay, so I've had some people say, didn't we cover Abigail last week? Well, we did, but we didn't finish the chapter. We got mainly halfway through it. So today it's the amazing story of Abigail, part 2, a woman who stopped a king's wrath. And let's just dive right back into this. We'll do a quick review of last week. Some of you weren't here. A little reminder. You know, we've got, when we covered this lesson, just go and turn your Bibles to 1 Samuel 25. We covered, first 3 verses covers the 3 main characters. Who remembers what they are? 3 main characters. We got David. We got Nabal. And we got Abigail, right? Alright, so we got through verses 4 through 17. That's where we ended. 4 through 17 covered the plot of Abigail's amazing story. Verses 4 through 9, it was a request for payment. Who remembers, kind of walk us through the request for payment? What happened there?
Well, they've been protecting, David's people have been protecting the sheep around, and they kind of showed up and asked for, whatever they could possibly give. They didn't demand anything.
Right.
And Nabal said, bye-bye.
Right, well, you kind of led into Nabal's reaction. So who wants to cover Nabal's reaction? Verses 10 through 11.
Well, he even acted like he didn't know who David was. Who is that?
Right.
No, spoke him anything.
Kind of nonsense. So verses 12 to 13, you had David's reaction to Nabal's reaction. So, how did he react?
David said for his men to get their swords.
Yeah, gird up your swords. He was kind of felt provoked. And Abigail's reaction. Now, don't get into too much of the plan, okay? Because that's where we're at. We stopped at the plan. So she receives word of how David reacted and how her husband reacted. And she develops a plan. So the rest of this class, we're going to be talking about the plan in motion. So let's just dive into it. Let's, I forgot that. All right, so let's go and open up our Bibles, verses 18 to 31. We need 3 readers. Joel, you feel like reading this morning?
Sure.
You take 18 to 23. Nick, you feel like reading today? We'll take 24 through 28. And somebody over here want to take 29 through 31? All right, Mr. Beck. All right, Joel, if you're there, go ahead.
Okay. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, 5 shias of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and loaded them on donkeys. And she said to her servants, "Go on before me. See, I am coming after you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. And so it was, as she rode on her donkey, that she went down under cover of the hill, and there were David and his men coming toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, "Surely in vain I have protected all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belongs to him, and he has repaid me evil for good. May God do so and more also to the enemies of David, if I leave one male of all who belong to him by morning light." Now when Abigail saw David, she dismounted quickly from the donkey, fell on her face before David, and bowed down to the ground.
She fell at his feet and said, "On me alone, my Lord, be his way, and please let your maidservant speak to you, and listen to the words of your maidservant. Please do not let my Lord pay attention to this worthless man, Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and follies with him, but I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of the Lord whom you sent. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, since the Lord has restrained you from shedding blood, and from avenging yourself by your own hand, now let Now then let your enemies and those who seek evil against my Lord be as Nabal. Now let this gift which your maidservant has brought to my Lord be given to the young men who accompany my Lord. Please forgive the transgressions of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make for my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil will not be found in all your days.
Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life, but the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living with the Lord your God. And the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the pocket of a sling. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord has done for my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that this will be no grief to you, nor offense of heart to my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause, or that my Lord has avenged himself. But when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant.
All right, thank you guys. All right, so again, we got kind of shared this with you last week. Proverbs 31:10. You know, who can find a virtuous wife, for her worth is hard as rubies. So Abigail here is a true example of Proverbs 31:1. Why is that? Well, Abigail assessed the situation. She engaged in an ingenious plan to save her husband's life and David's reputation. Abigail organized a full-scale catering service for about 400 men. That's a true amazing story. So let's talk about Abigail's intercession. Alrighty, so what'd she take?
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. We'll run down that. 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed. I mean, seasoned, ready, good to go. Already cooked. Roasted grain. What's cheese? Is that its name?
That's a measurement.
100 clusters of raisins. 200 cakes of figs. Loaded them on donkeys. Imagine how big that was. And told the servants to ride before her, but she didn't tell her husband. So, how many of you been in the military? Dwayne has. Joel. John. Oh yeah. Randy. Richard, most of us. So, I know when I was in the military, it took a lot to feed troops when they were out in the field. Okay, you had MKTs, that's mobile kitchen units. Sometimes we had to do what they call mermite, go into the main post with a bunch of stuff and load up stuff, and it kept it warm, and you had to take it out logistically. It was a challenge.
Well, sadly, today's world, a lot of people may not want to eat it if it was riding on a donkey.
Yeah.
Just sadly.
Yeah. So I mean, I know just to move food in the military to troops that are training is a difficult task, and she did this like it was little preparation. It was more of a reaction, and she pulled it off.
But all of the stuff was already ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. And when David's men came and said, hey, just give us what you have on hand, this was what was on hand already.
Well, Lord brought up last week, it was during this feast. He had a celebration, so I'm thinking they got the leftovers of the feast.
Yeah.
But it was still fresh. It was still fresh.
Well, I think it also shows like the wealth of him. If this is just extra laying around, like you said, you've already had the feast, and this is the leftovers from the feast, or even if it's not leftovers from the feast, if it's part of I'm sure that Abigail would not short the guests that were coming, because that probably would have made Nabal mad. And so, I mean, just the fact that that's just a pittance, you know, I mean, if somebody stopped by my house and needed food, I'm not gonna have 200 loaves of bread.
Yeah, but you're not gonna have 400 people stop off and
No.
say,
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna have those fig cakes, you know, I'm just saying.
Debbie just recently, I'll say Debbie and I helped very little, but Jacob was graduating and he did his last chapel service. And we went and we fed for 50 people. And everything we purchased, we literally, we moved it 3 or 4 times before we got it to the table for them to eat. Because, you know, it was a lot of work.
Takes apartment to the school, and then get them in the school.
Yeah, it was.
And then reverse it.
So, cook it for 50 people. Again, but like Robin said, she didn't cook all that. Johnny on the spine, it was already ready, but it's still a lot of work on loading it up on donkeys and getting it out there. I mean, how do you carry 2 sheep already dressed on a donkey?
Not already dressed, that means they're skinned and ready to,
Right.
Well, she had lots of servants.
I think if they're dressed like you said, I think if they're dressed, they're skinned and ready to be cooked. Yeah.
It doesn't say how many servants she had right before her, but she did have help with it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so her intercession continued. Abigail showed loyalty to the soon-to-be king by falling at David's feet and begging for mercy on her husband's behalf. We kind of covered that in verses 24 and 25. She knew Nabal was foolish and deserving of David's anger. We kind of covered that a little bit last week, but not much. Her actions were not about saving her husband. They were more about protecting the next king. She didn't want David to come to the throne with murder on his hands. And her actions reminded David to leave vengeance where it belongs. And where does vengeance belong? In God's hands, right? Anything else worth recapping out of those 32 through 44?
Let's back up just a little bit. A skin of wine. How much are we talking?
You know, I thought about diving deeper into that. Somebody just might have that if you got a study Bible. It may have those measurements, or somebody can Google search that, how much is a skin of wine. I'm guessing it's maybe a liter.
Might be a lot of that.
I don't think a leader would go for 400 gallons.
5 gallon, maybe a 55 gallon drum. Or,
Well, Google says just a normal leather bag, which doesn't sound a lot.
How many fish did she have?
2 skins of wine.
That was 2.
Yeah.
Jody, I wanted to address that first one there, though. It says shows loyalty, begging for mercy on her husband's behalf. She kind of threw him under the bus, you know. With 5, I like what she don't pay attention to this worthless man. This is her husband, you know.
Yeah.
She didn't like him.
Yeah.
Maybe she was forced to marry, you know, man.
Yeah, a lot of those
Wasn't
things.
nice to me, and I could see
or she was trying to protect him, but like, oh, he didn't know what he was doing because he's an idiot. You know? So don't pay any attention to him. So, or what he said.
Yeah. Any of you wives ever had to cover the tracks of something you're stupid your husband did?
Never.
Never? Oh, we got a never over here. Anybody else want to squeak up? I know Debbie's.
Do you want to be put on the spot?
You know, listen, I was gonna say, you better watch it, because she's still expecting those weekend trips for a year's worth. She's calculated that out.
Because everybody heard last week.
Yeah. That's a lot of trips. I'm not fully retired yet either.
I want to add something
No excuses.
about she didn't want David to come to the throne with murder on his hands. And why, I guess my question is, he just done killed the Philistines and everybody else, so what would make this murder and that not?
I think that goes back to where David didn't consult God. He just reacted. So it wasn't something God wanted him to, to do. He was just reacting on his own terms. I think that is the difference.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. Okay, all very good points. Did anybody find out about the skins? We didn't, nobody?
Well, it takes a while to get service in here, but it does, just, what did you find? Because
It's 1 to 2 liters.
1 to 2 liters, so it's really not that much.
no.
Maybe that was just for David.
Yeah, or the leader, the leaders, they got. Okay, alrighty, so we're ready to read the close out the rest of the chapter.
Okay, so now I did just find this real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt. It says that the wineskin depended upon the size of the whole skin that they were using, and that it could ranging in size from 30 to 40 liters. So I guess if it was a big cow skin or something.
If you spell skin S-K-E-I-N,
No,
that's
that's
right.
skein.
Yeah.
Skein of yarn.
No, that's the way we did it, but that's not what it says. It says a wineskin is an ancient traditional container made from animal skin, usually goat or sheep, designed for storing and transporting wine. It's these watertight leather bags, something in Spain, sealed with resin, used today for carrying beverages. How many goat skin?
Okay, so it could have been if the skin was something like a rabbit, it's going to be very small. It's going to be a sheep. It's going to hold more. Okay. Okay, so does that kind of answer your question? Just depends on how big this animal part is.
It's not bigger than a liter. Nobody else would get it because I can drink a liter of Pepsi by myself.
Y'all gotta sit.
But can you drink a liter of wine,
I don't know about what little bit I've tasted in this world.
All right, who wants to review our next readers? 32 through 36. Somebody over here. Richard, do you want to do that one?
David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for your keeping me from the bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the say to the Lord God of Israel lives, he has kept me from harming you. If you have not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." Then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him and said, "Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request." When Abigail went to Nabal, he was in the house, holding a banquet like that of a king. He was high in spirits and very drunk. So when she told him nothing at all until daybreak.
Okay, next, Robin, you want to take the 37 through 40?
So it was in the morning when the wine had gone from Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became like a stone. Then it happened after about 10 days that the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. So when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be the Lord, who has pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and has kept his servant from evil. For the Lord has returned the wickedness of Nabal on his own head." And David sent and proposed to Abigail to take her as his wife. When the servants of David had come to Abigail at Carmel, they spoke to her, saying, "David sent us to you to ask you to become his wife."
All righty. Dwayne, you want to finish the chapter out, 41 through 44?
Yeah. Then she arose, bowed her face to the earth, and said, "Here is your maidservant, a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord." So Abigail rose in haste and rode on a donkey, attended by 5 of her maidens, and she followed the messengers of David and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel and so both of them were his wives. But Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Palti, the son of Laish, who was from Gad.
Okay. So, the amazing conclusion. So, we had so what happened? Well, all good things come to those who, right?
Wait.
Who wait. Put it in the Lord's hand, let the Lord's will be done. Sometimes there's action taken. What else did y'all learn from as we close out this chapter? What happened to the bad guy, the villain?
Okay. Killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
God took vengeance.
God took vengeance. So David didn't have to take vengeance, did he? Okay, so verses 32 through 35 kind of covers Abigail waited David's response. David's heart softened as he recognized the providential hand of God. The king-elect was humbled, even though he made a bad decision initially. Abigail, the word we would use today, Abigail de-escalated the situation. Use that at work quite a bit, especially when people are angry. That's what the leaders are supposed to do, de-escalate situations before they get out. When Abigail returned home, she found her husband had decided to have a feast and was drunk with wine, verse 36. Abigail didn't get angry. She decided to go to bed. She had pleaded with David to leave things in the hands of God, and she decided to do the same. So there's more on this. These last verses cover a lot. Abigail informed her husband what she had done. Here's an interesting point that the writer of this material brings out. Nabal's heart died within him. He suggests that today we would call that a stroke or a heart attack.
He turned his face turned to stone or something.
Well,
That would be indicative of a stroke.
Yeah. So that I thought that was an interesting connected dots there. 10 days later, the Lord struck him and he died. So he had to be. What else was that? I held that too long. So what's our lesson? What's the bottom line lessons learned here? Okay, do what is right. Leave the rest in God's hands. God is perfectly capable of handling everything in His time. That's one of the songs we sing. In His time and in His way. You have to believe. You have to believe that. You have to believe that God's got His foot on the throttle, and you have to trust God to do that. Okay, so wow, we got through that pretty quickly, but we got some discussion questions. This will wrap up 15 minutes remaining, probably. All right, so David, before we go to discussion questions, anything else you want to bring up on conclusion? You're all kind of quiet. We just
I
talked.
want to say something.
Okay.
Okay, Abigail accepted his proposal that quickly, and she carried all that food to him. That proves the way a man's heart is food is food.
I always hoped somebody would say that.
And so that gal knew what she was doing, and if David was as good looking as the Lord said he was, and all that kind of good stuff, I can see why she went in.
Yeah. I can relate to that. When I was dating Debbie back in the early 90s, early 90s, yeah. I had I don't know if it was coincidence or by design, but I seemed to show up for supper a lot. And they picked on me about that.
But Jody, I find it hidden in here something that maybe I knew. I mean, there's so much in the Bible, you can't remember everything. 43, verse 43, where it says that David had also taken, and I'm not sure how you pronounce it. How does it? Yeah, as a wife. So I mean, she's kind of a hidden wife here.
Yes, so yeah, where'd she come in at?
I don't know if that's like the first, one of that's the first wife or.
No, Michael was
Michael was his first
wife.
wife.
Saul's daughter.
Well, we didn't mention her.
It's at the 344.
Read the next verse.
They gave Michael his daughter, David's wife. Okay.
But Saul took her back.
Yeah.
Gave her to somebody else.
Somebody else.
Because women don't matter. They're unimportant. And David didn't ask Abigail to marry him because he was in love. She was a smarty pants. And he's like, I could use this woman. She will be a benefit to me.
Like an advisor.
And poor Abigail went from one idiot's house to another.
Well, I commented when you said that she was a smart gal and went right for the food. My brother-in-law, who's a retired Church of Christ preacher, he always says the reason women have weight problems is because it all comes back on Eve. She ate them out of house and home.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, you know, Abigail didn't prepare or cook the food. She had servants to do that. So I don't know if David was looking for a cook or not. I wouldn't think so.
But she
Well, she
provided,
Cook it.
she provided good counsel, but she went from being a main wife to joining a harem, right, so.
Yeah.
I retract that comment.
Look what she
Seems
did.
like all these men in the Bible, they're always getting all these women. Their mind seems to be on women. Got more wives, more wives.
I don't see how they took care of it, but there you go.
And when God from the beginning said one man and one woman,
Yeah.
but then all these people had multiple wives. I don't understand that.
Yeah, Ron Wilson, he preached or taught one time, and he said like early men and culturally took a scripture out of context of be fruitful and multiply, and so they took that as a reason to have multiple wives, multiply.
I think, well, there was also, I heard a discussion one time, and I'm just kind of giving the very big gist of it, was that there's a lot of things addressed in the Bible, like slavery and things like that, having all the wives, and there was a difference between what God's plan was versus what people did. So it wasn't necessarily a condonement all the time of everything that's in the Bible, because people were still doing their own thing. And I'm not sure if that's where that line is on that topic, but it's just something to think about, that just because it is in here, people did it, didn't mean that it was God's plan for people to do it.
That's just it.
Maybe there was a shortage of men because they kicked down all these wars and the men got wiped out. So
Well, David was running around with 400. I'm pretty sure there were plenty. But it talks about back in 2 Samuel 3, verse 2 through 5, the sons of David. I mean, he had a son by Ahinoam, a son by Abigail, a son of Maacah, a son of Haggith, the son of Abital, and Eglah. And then, yeah, and we got Bathsheba coming later.
Yeah.
So we're looking at least 6.
Yeah.
And actually, in that verse that you're referencing, it just says sons. So there could have been there could have been daughters born as well. That's just boys.
All right, so now that we've bashed David so much, this is probably a terrible time to ask this discussion question. what in this chapter reveals another reason why David is a man after God's own heart?
Well, he showed mercy.
He showed mercy.
The Lord likes women too, so they.
He would admit when he was wrong.
Right.
David did that. I mean, pretty much any time that he did something that was against God's will, he owned up to it and was sorry for it.
So he was sorry for marrying all these women. That was a sin, wasn't it? Wasn't that a sin?
Okay.
It was his sin.
So what disappoints you, because we've talked about a lot of David's disappointments, what disappoints you about David in verse 13? You might rewind back to 13, what he did. Was that when he...
Get your swords, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, gear up.
Let him hard rule his head.
Yeah. So what disappoints you about that? He, I think Debbie pointed out, he didn't go to God first.
Right.
Okay. He kind of just took it upon himself to. Now, what would you and I do? I mean, we're supposed to turn the other cheek, right? What would you or I do? You know, we worked hard for somebody and we expected a little bit of food on the table and we didn't get that meal we expected. I think we'd be pretty upset too, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, it's easy to sit here now and say, oh, well, I would stop and I would pray and I would consider. I mean, but, you know, sometimes things happen and just in that very moment. I mean, I think that's what happened here. And then he came back and said, hey, he says, no way. And then David said, all right, come on, we're going.
David's responsible for all of these people who are following him. The only reason they're out there following is because he's there. And, you know, these guys did this work all season. And all they were asking for is a little bit of food.
Yeah.
And so, you know, nobody messes with my kids or my people or whatever, so David was going to make it right.
And it wasn't like they couldn't afford to feed them or pay them anything.
I mean, David's people could have been raiding the sheep.
Exactly. They
In
could have
the
been
villages,
eaten all along.
if they wanted to. I mean, there's 400 of them running around.
But the scriptures brings out nothing was missing.
Yeah.
They did a good job. They didn't steal. All right, we got another question on David. Do any of you have any Davids in your life? And I'll kind of answer the question, but it's open for discussion. Davids in your life, people whose hearts are humble enough to listen and wise enough to change. Have any Davids in your lives? All the men should be saying, my wife, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking, actually, you know, my sister Sandy, she was not a David. She might be a, you know, whatever, a Danielle. She really was a really great from as far as somebody whose heart was humble enough to listen and wise enough to change. Of course, John would like for me to say, yeah, but I'm sorry. Although, yeah.
I would be like the day would, you know, gear up already.
Yeah. You'd have to be de-escalated.
Yeah, he would need to be de-escalated.
All right, how about this one? Do any of you have any? Navel. I say navels in your life. People Satan uses to get under your skin and nudge you into sin.
I think we probably have more of these.
Oh yeah, I work for the government. I got all kinds of these guys.
Yeah, you're out in the world at all, you run into lots of these.
Yeah. So.
So then I could say that would be my other sister.
If your husbands are doing this to your wives, you're in the doghouse, right? So, see, I think all of us have.
You better behave.
Okay, we'll cover some discussion questions on our key character of this. Why do you think Abigail wasn't willing?
Abigail.
What did I say?
ABL.
I'm sorry.
This has gotten a little crazy.
Why do you think Abigail was willing to let things play out on her own? In other words, whatever will be, will be. Why Why didn't she just do that? She just felt like she had to act.
She must have trusted in God, it sounds like she.
It goes back to being a good leader. I mean, David was gonna come and his people were gonna kill every man in town. I mean, that was
He
before
was
she
gonna
knew.
do it. It was an elimination
Yeah.
that David was on. I think that Abigail was kind of protecting her own survival.
She
And
was
her
smart
own-
enough to know
because,
the outcome
you know,
would be good.
Nabal had apparently some amount of wealth, given the time, and she was enjoying the fruits of that.
Okay. All right. This is what I kind of struggled with in this whole story. What is the difference between faith being put into action and let the Lord's will be done?
And the first thought that, what that makes me think of is that, the concept of when doors close and doors open, is you still gotta walk through it. There's still a part you gotta play, so you gotta pray to know when it's time to act and when it's time to wait.
Yeah.
But you still take some type of action on your part most of the time.
I can kind of dial in on kind of
That
capitalize
faith
on
without works is dead.
faith that works is dead.
That is also gonna come with age as you mature, because there have been a time I would have been like David, I'd have gone after him.
Yeah.
But
This might not be the best
See, you're on
example.
my way.
Let's just take weight loss, for example. Who hadn't tried to lose weight in their life? We can pray, let the Lord will be done to lose weight, but guess what? We still gotta have healthy food choices, do we not? Okay, so there's a little bit of faith in God that, we gotta put the spoon down. We gotta know when to push ourselves away from the table too. So, because we cannot easily be tempted with gluttony and just to overeat. If we want our goal is to lose weight and we continue to overeat, commit gluttony, or we're going to lose weight, is that the Lord's will? So.
If you just sit back and do nothing, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Faith without works is dead.
Our ladies' day yesterday was about faith, and one of the ladies' story was her husband got a job offer in Michigan, and it answered all of their prayers, except she didn't want to go to Michigan. And so she kept resisting, and every argument she threw out, an answer was found, or God provided an answer for. So she ended up going to Michigan, and it was a good thing for her family. But, that's it. You have to trust God. You're asking God for these answers in your life, or these blessings in your life, but then you have to be willing to put aside your fear and trust that this is going to be a good step for your family or your life.
It's good. I wish I'd have been there. I wasn't invited to the ladies. I'm glad the ladies supported that. That's a good little congregation. And they're close. It's the closest one to us. What did Abigail do and how she reacted? Was the faith put into action, or was it the Lord's will? We kind of just covered that. But I think most of you would say it was
Maybe it was both.
It was both. Yeah, it was both here.
She did what she could, and when the result was out of her control. She did what she could do, and then
I had faith that it would be enough.
Right. Okay, so a little bit more on Abigail here. Let's discuss Abigail's wise plan of action that would protect the king elect from murder. We kind of that's what most of this lesson was about.
Well, she supplied what they were wanting.
Yeah.
So she went.
Well, the king elect being David, was her action, was he subjecting himself to being murdered? Or you're talking about protecting the king elect from committing murder? That's a little confusing the way that's written out.
Yeah, I would say committing murder.
Committing murder. Definitely committing murder.
Well, he could have been
He
killed.
could have been killed. It could go, I think that could be both ways, like, well, go that question.
General being killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, wait.
yeah, I hadn't really thought about on the other hand. Maybe he could have been killed.
David was already anointed by God to be the next king. I mean, he probably could have walked around underwater for a while, and he should have had the faith that I'm gonna be fine. Maybe that's why he felt he could do all the things he was doing, is because, you know, God had already told him the plan. He knew how it ended.
Don't tempt the Lord.
So, her humble words of wisdom that she offered David, we kind of already covered that. This is a good place to end.